Hey, this is XCOM, and it's going to be a more relaxed video where I'm going to just fly through a bunch of stuff that is happening on a creative. We might actually reset creative, so I wanted to actually capture this because it's about to get lost, or we were about to archive this world. And I'm actually standing right here in this area, and things have changed a little bit. There is stuff in the background that wasn't here before. About a year and a half ago, we did the canon stuff, and we were supposed to do this in 3 parts, and I was supposed to introduce it with a canon video, and Ita was supposed to do the dupers, and methods were supposed to do the TNT compression. But we're still waiting for methods to do this video, but I don't think he's ever going to make it. So I thought, why not just pick up where I left off last time and just finish the recording, and I'll just go through all the TNT duplications and all the craziness that happened about a year and a half ago, just as we just wanted to develop the TNT duplicators for the Pearl cannons. I guess I'll start off right here at the beginning. About right here was the TNT duper, and you can actually see the remnants of it. Now this is something that was actually on the survival or the creative world that I was doing MCP tests on. So it was directly running out of my ID, so I was trying to figure out a way to get the Pearl aligned. And then I took the Pearl liner and built it up here in this world using schematic. I just took the schematic over here. And then we actually started to develop different TNT dupers. And the first versions was this cake, and it was aligning the TNT and such. Back then we didn't actually understand how TNT worked at all. We had no clue, and we were basically developing the fundamentals. So in the early stages we wanted to actually use some kind of a duper similar to this. Very simple, getting 3 TNT into one spot just by activating this block over here. But obviously this is a very small amount of TNT, just 3 TNT is very small. And then we didn't actually understand the principles of how TNT actually ignites. When you place a TNT and activate it, it just jumps towards a random direction. And it's that random momentum can actually cause a lot of issues. We didn't know about that. Also, we didn't know exactly how TNT dupers worked, and this was something that Ita actually set up. We thought we were going to get 4 TNT dupes in one piston push. That was one of Ita's setups here to become a much larger build that is now the 22 version that was then later built on the Christmas cannon. But this was the earlier versions. This is Ita's setup where he wanted to compress 8 TNT. 8 TNT, and then push them around with pistons and then get them to drop out here in the middle. And then he took this setup and built the 40 TNT, so basically combined all these 5 TNT into one basket. And it was like one of the versions right here that we expected it to be like the final cannon version. We're going to just need 40 TNT. There is never going to be a need for a larger amount of TNT than this setup over here. And I mean, this was back when we basically started out. So, and before this we had a duper setup, non-duper setup with just dispensers. And the method started to look into other methods like this one over here, where he wanted to push the TNT around using slime and different layouts with the rails. And we didn't actually know that you don't need to actually put rails in between here. So this was just another version of it. And this version kept blowing up because of this minor momentum that TNT has. And we didn't actually understand it back then, and we just expected that, we just thought TNT has this weird behavior, it's magical, it doesn't make sense. And back then it was like completely mysterious when these things blew up. And by now there's thousands of tools. No, not 1,000, but there's at least 20 carpet rules just to be able to figure out why the TNT blows up in your contraption and such. Then, at least when we got to the point when Ita had his 40 version, Methods made this version, which was like something like 48, which was like 8 more TNT, and it was perfect. We attached that here and tried to get more dupe TNT, and we actually tried to shoot with the pearls, and it kind of went pretty far. So we started to actually spawn in alt characters, and there is still a setup right here. Down here at the bottom you can actually see the summoned characters. We used many Alexes and just kept spawning them into this world in large amounts just to load the chunk so that the pearl could actually travel. And we realized the pearl is traveling about 4,000 blocks or something was absolutely amazing. We were astonished. It actually worked. And then we started to look into better ways to align the pearl. And then we came up with this one where it was a little bit more sleek, compact. And this is the one that was actually on the video at the end. And put some safety features down bottom so that blocks could kind of block you instead of just like allowing the player to throw multiple pearls, spamming the system and causing issues. So there was many things that we looked into, and then there was actually some methodologies of getting the pearl and a TNT aligned differently. And these lines here, they're indicating that you can actually get the pearl to become aligned differently, sending it off in different angles. Obviously, you don't have infinite angles because of the limitations in Minecraft. You can only align the TNT using stairs, slabs, and glass panes. Stuff that is mobile, can be pushed around, and has an odd shape, which there actually sadly isn't that many of. We have requested this one feature from Mojang to actually add more hitboxes, but that's a different story. Anyways, and then we actually went from the 40 duper and started to look into a more compactor way. And I knew that the methodology that was used in this setup, methodzz one, it wasn't stable. So getting more than 48 dupe TNT was possible, and we could probably do it. But we were going like, this is going to probably be fine. We're never going to use this cannon for more than 4,000 blocks. And I just got curious, and then me and Ita just started to like became like a little bit of a small like quest to find the best duper. And then we started to or go back to the basics and look at the setups that we could actually improve. And then we started to look into this setup where we attached 5 TNT into one row with rails on top. And by now we're still like unaware that we can actually dupe TNT much better, much compactor. And we built this setup, and then there was a bunch of pistons here, labeled them and such. And then here was when we started to understand that, okay, TNT can actually have micro momentums, and they can sit here on the lip of the block and not fall down. And this is what causes these baskets and the setup from methodzz over there to actually get blown up, because micro momentum of the TNT is one of those annoying things that actually causes TNT to be unstable. So this is where this 10 duper kind of came to. I think there is one version here that works. Oh yeah, here it is. And then I went like, we need to dupe 2 series of TNT and align them differently. And this thing came to. So we went like, maybe we could actually get the TNT to be propelled using other TNT. And there is the TNT being shot away. And that's 10 TNT. And then because the TNT is actually sitting on top of ender chests, they don't blow up anything. That's one of the features with ender chests. They actually allow the TNT not blow up blocks. Although I have a carpet rule that disables the explosion damages. But that's besides the point. The basket here was kind of designed with the TNT kind of being stubborn and having this problem where it could actually sit on top of like blocks and such. That made it so that the basket actually could get blown up. Then back here, there's a bunch of timing delays that had to be adjusted, special refinements that, like if you put this repeater on a different delay, then one of these pistons don't fire. And then there is like a TNT that sits on one of these ledges and then kind of blows up the basket. And this is where we started to like look into taking this duper setup, because now we had a way to actually drop the TNT straight down, so you could actually stack these duper setups. And we looked into stacking them so that you could actually put multiple TNT into the same spot. And this thing came to like this massive Borg cube shaped TNT duplication system. Like many TNT could just fall straight out of the sky. But that's not where we stopped. Like there was like this 70 version that came to. It looks like a man. I'm not gonna say what it looks like, but this was like one of the 70 dupers, and we managed to compact this. And I was convinced. I was like, I'm gonna take this setup, I'm gonna make this reliable, and we're gonna use this. But that's not where we actually finished doing the compaction. Here's another version of it. Like here's the actual duplication and the compaction that places the TNT in this correct location and aligns it and perfect and everything. And then after this, we started to actually look into attaching this TNT duper on an actual pearl cannon. So the pearl cannon tech was going to be attached at the bottom and a duplicator at the top. But we kind of didn't stop here. So at this point, methodzz went like, okay, why don't you actually take the setup over here, the one that actually accelerates the TNT, and he started to look into acceleration of the TNT that was right up here somewhere that I actually showed earlier. So he started to actually chain react the TNT to make them like compact much better. And I think there is like one version over here that haven't been blown up. Let me actually see if I can turn it on and see if it works. Oh, it sadly doesn't work any longer. It's this is archaic remnants of the of the past. So stuff here on the server doesn't work anymore, and much other stuff has come to, like, we have started to build around it. Maybe this version over here works. Let me just try this. Yeah, that's not really good. Luckily, we have the explosion or block damage rule, carpet rule, so nothing gets blown up. But still, like, it can actually be seen that you can actually put TNT many TNT in one spot and then compact it. So, anyways, this was the beginning of the compacting TNT using other TNT, and from here, I was going like, let's combine the best of the two, the 10 duper that is like up here, method system, and then improve it, because it could be improved, because this basket could actually be redesigned. It's very, very large. It has a large signature. It has this advantage that you can actually drop the TNT from top, but you could actually improve the setup. And we started to actually look into improving the basket much more and making TNT duplicate and fall into this bottom section without having to spend as much of the space on the sides here, because there's one row of TNT here and one row here, and maybe you could configure this design and make it much more compact. This is a different area, and I can actually see some of the duplicators from methodzz over here. He actually started to use the 10 duper and stack them on top of each other, and these can actually drop down, and then you could mobilize the TNT differently and send them off in a different direction. But besides the duplicators here, and there's like the Dragon X stuff tests, you can see that in the distance over there. There is another setup. I'll try to find it. Here it is. Wasn't too far away. So we actually looked into. So I asked Ita if we actually could go back to the TNT duplicators and just take another look. And I was kind of convinced that you could actually compact the whole setup. Now we had TNT right next to each other, and then the basket looked much smaller here in the bottom. So that actually there was much less time for the TNT to actually go from this position down at the bottom over here, because the time it takes for the TNT actually to exit this basket, that's actually critical, and you want to make it as compact as possible so you can actually accelerate the TNT like I showed earlier. And this was much more compact and much faster than the previous setup, so that the TNT actually could exit the basket and hit the ground, and then you could actually accelerate it into the distance. So this was something that started to get developed. So we used redstone lines here with redirection so that you could actually drop the power level and cause less lag. And there was a bunch of TNT that could actually land here. Now this section has been blown up, sadly. And right about here was when we started to go like, why don't we actually use fence gates and fence, like this fence gate over here. And we'd actually never used this tech before, so we actually started to actually incorporate fence gates, and we were quite noobish back then. So fence gates have like the hitbox that is a little bit bigger, and that's something that actually you can use. It actually protrudes a little bit, so you can actually stand on top of it. So it's a little bit higher than a glass block, obviously, and that actually can be helped if you want to push a TNT around, and it's kind of is one block, but it's protrudes one half block above, and that you can actually use to align the TNT much faster and such. And then obviously the same thing here at the bottom, where the TNT can actually drop out, and then you can accelerate it. And further in the distance, I can actually go there and show it. maybe I have to load the whole machine to be able to try it out. I'm pretty sure that it's, yeah, it is actually working. We can actually check it out. Let me just set it up. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this actually works still. I think it's turned on over here. Yep, seems like TNT is actually duping still. And you can actually see the TNT being compressed using other TNT. And this is still in development phase. So, and you can actually see that there was like a timing game. You have to actually figure out this timing game, and we got really lucky because it's apparently not that easy to actually figure out. The TNT actually propels pretty fast, and you only have a small moment of time where this TNT actually have to explode so that it keeps propelling. Because if the TNT actually explodes here or here, this batch over there explodes a little bit further back, then it's going to start flying backwards. But it's we got lucky. I had to put a trapdoor or a fence gate here and open the fence gate, and that actually helps to propel it, which was kind of part of the whole discovery process. We didn't know about that either, that you can actually open trapdoors and they actually stop the raycast from the TNT and prevent acceleration and stuff. It was complicated stuff that has to do with raycasting. And then here is where you can actually see the TNT end up at, and we started to develop like ways to figure out how long it takes for the TNT to actually stay here and whatnot, so that we can actually align the TNT here, because raw TNT in this form can't be used. You have to align it like we saw there in the Pearl cannon. So not only did the TNT actually have to end up over here at this corner, they have to actually be aligned. Let me just go in there and shut this machine off because it's kind of laggy. But this was where it all started, and we actually started to understand like approximately how TNT compression works. By now we had about 330 TNT being able to dupe and compress into one spot, and after 330 TNT, we just thought this is going to be the absolute best we can ever do. There is absolutely no reason for it to continue from this point on. And this is also at the same time we actually started to look into lazy chunk TNT, because you can actually compress and place TNT in lazy chunks and they don't tick. And then you can actually use that to get an infinite number of TNT, which is actually something that methodzz did somewhere around this world. At this point, we were about 3 months after we'd started with the first TNT dupers, or 2 months, and we'd ended up somewhere over here. And it took us a long time to figure this stuff out. And I was convinced that this is going to be the final version, and this kind of became the first version and the first iteration of the Christmas cannon. And I'll go over to the place where Ita actually recorded his video, and we've actually caught up to the point where Ita has done his video. So this is the area where Ita actually started to record, and he actually recorded the whole video about how the TNT dupers work, the different ways you can actually get TNT dupers to align and whatnot, which challenges there are, and then he showed off the different dupers. This is the 8 version, the 10 version, and a different 10 version somewhere over here, and this is the compressor. This is the first iteration that went into the first Christmas cannon. It's like so large that it actually exceeds the render distance on the server. If you have a render distance of 16, it almost, yeah, it actually causes issues. You don't actually always load the peripherals over here, so there is always one chunk that you actually don't load, and it blew up the cannon so many times on creative that I didn't understand like why chunks don't load. And by now we don't understand why it doesn't load. It's something to do with the player chunk map and how the player can move around and such. Back then we didn't have a clue. So back then we thought, how is this cannon not being loaded? If you're standing here and this chunk 16 chunks out, it should pretty much be loaded, but it didn't. But this is the 16 render distance compressed TNT that ends up at the very end of it. But here Ita makes his video, and then Myron goes like, you know that you can actually take this duplicator and compress it much better if you use 12 TNT. And he just shows a picture to Ita, and then we go like, oh, that's actually interesting. We can actually use this 11 duped version right here. with the rail at the very end. And then we figured out we actually need to have this what is called cocoa beam, because the TNT jumps up and then it doesn't slide over to this block over here. That's why there is a cocoa beam. And the cocoa beam actually makes it so that the TNT doesn't jump up too far, because if you look at the TNT when it actually ignites, it jumps up a little bit. And if you have a cocoa beam right on top of it, it actually makes it so that it doesn't jump as far. So if I actually set it up over here, this TNT will actually jump less than the one next to it. So you can actually see that the left one jumps much further up than the one that is underneath the cocoa beam. That's why there is a cocoa beam there. It's one of the big, huge discoveries. We found this out and we go like, oh my god, we have another hitbox we can actually use. This is amazing. It's kind of trivial, but generally speaking, it's like one of those rare things. You can also use a skull. A mob skull can also have an odd hitbox if it's placed against the block like this. It actually has the same hitbox mechanic, and it's differently if it's placed on the floor than if it's placed on the ground. Can actually use the skull, which we didn't actually think about, but you can also use the cocoa beam, which is actually a simpler block to get or hitbox to get. But at least that's history. But generally speaking, this 22 duper was something that Ita also showed. And we were so astonished about this 22 duper, and that we started to quickly develop it. And by now we actually know exactly how to compress TNT. And I make a mock-up here, which is kind of a crappy one. Then Ita makes a better version here, and then he uses slime to push the stuff around. And then we sort of look into why this one blows up, because you have to sort of place blocks in correct locations. There's like reasons that there's blocks here in these locations. Otherwise, the TNT can actually land in the incorrect spot. And then Ita insists that everything has to be rail-based because it causes lag. I have no idea why the obsession about the rail is so important, but he wanted to actually make everything rail-based. So then we actually end up with this setup over here. We actually figured that, oh, you can actually place these fence gates and actually aligns the TNT much better, because the TNT actually shifts forth and back. And I can actually activate this one over here. We can actually see it. It happens so fast that it's barely visible. So I'll try to do it. Maybe another version where it's actually more easier to see. Here, it's probably easier. So if you pay attention, the TNT actually slides forth and back. It's really difficult to see. But that effect, where the TNT actually shifts forth and back, there's two really important things. One of them is to actually align the TNT so that it actually just falls out of these slides, so that it doesn't actually fall straight here. So otherwise, if you remove them, it would actually make a big mess. And you have a ton of TNT just straight up falling into the ground. And you don't want to do that. You want to compress it. You want to have the TNT in the same spot. So these trapdoors are here for doing that. And there's another thing it does, and it momentum cancels. As I talked about it earlier, this was some problem we had, which if you actually place the TNT, and there's a carpet rule, I'll just turn it off because it looked kind of weird. That's the rule because we can easier just build these devices with that carpet rule. But if you see, it actually jumps in this random direction, and you have to eliminate the random jump direction that it has, because it can actually cause issues. And that's the problem that these compressors have. 1 in 1,000 TNT actually have this small momentum, and then it jumps up and then lands on these ledges, and these ledges kind of cause issues, because if the TNT lands here, it doesn't push forward, because like I'm trying to walk forward right now, it doesn't. So instead of being pushed forward along and then ending up down here, it gets stuck somewhere and it blows up. So to be able to eliminate those micro momentums, there is one of two ways to do it, and it's to actually push the TNT, like push it with pistons. Okay, you saw that I just pushed the TNT I squeezed it with this piston over here. That's one way to cancel one of the momentums. The second way to momentum cancel is to use slime. Let me just demonstrate. So if you actually accelerate the TNT and it hits a wall, then it also loses its momentum and also aligns it. So that's one of two ways, and there is also different ways to do it. But these two are the most common ones to eliminate the momentum of the TNT. You could also make the TNT itself just fly against the wall and just hit the wall. You could also use water to push the TNT around, and then if the TNT actually hits a wall when it's sliding on water, that actually helps as well. There's many other ways. You can actually use TNT to accelerate the TNT. If you actually take the TNT and push it against the wall like this, and you can actually see that if you don't take care of the different angles, the TNT sits on this ledge. So you actually not only do you have to momentum cancel in the z-axis, you actually have to momentum cancel in the x-axis as well. And that's what one of the axes here is taken care of. When it's actually being pushed forth and back here, then the TNT actually loses its momentum in one of the two directions. So if you want to momentum cancel the TNT, like in both of the axes, then you could actually use this TNT itself, because the TNT dupes and there is an entity there, and you can push the TNT around. Now, the second thing you need to do is to set up the TNT so that you push it with this piston over here, for example. That's why there is multiple pistons everywhere and such, so that when it lands over here, it's not only been momentum cancelled in this direction, it's also been momentum cancelled in the other direction. And that's why by now, when we actually were developing these dupers, we were kind of fully aware about these problems, and that's why it actually took much less time. So we built this one up in quite a short amount of time, in 2-3 days. And this was the final version that actually was incorporated into the last version that was in survival. And then I just took the Carlo palette of Christmas, was during Christmas, and I just developed the Christmas cannon over here. And this one actually dupes TNT, and then it propels the TNT towards this spot over here. And this is something like 550 TNT, and it's also the one that is actually used in the rail cannon. So you can actually get the TNT to come all the way to this spot, and it's just perfectly aligned. And it all blows up in this one particular spot. Now, explosions are turned off because I don't want to blow up everything. But this is the final version of the machine that was kind of incorporated into survival. And this is the only device that actually, this wasn't the first device to actually build in survival. There was one other version over there that I showed. I actually built up both of them because I thought that one was going to work. But there is a bug in the game, this small little tweaky bug that just made a mess, and the cannon blew up, and I had no idea why. It took a long time. I'll go through the details of why that bug actually happens in a separate video. But I built up then this cannon, and this one also blew up. It was a mess. It was like there is this weird bug where if you push TNT across chunk borders, and very specific chunk borders, it actually can cause TNT to not actually align properly. But this is where things kind of was left off, and the tech kind of went into remnants. Like we started to ignore the TNT dupers, and about after 13 actually hit and 1.13 came out, about 6 months later, then I actually started to look into the TNT dupers again. And this was the version over there that is the 122 duper that is developed with the miner's idea about using what is called TNT to ignite the other TNT, and then Ita made his compactor. I took that design and I made it much more compact and more reliable. There was a major design flaw with that design where the TNT actually was always primed, which was kind of an annoyance. And then the trapdoors was actually not in an optimal position. I repositioned the trapdoors so that actually there was much less TNT that need to be taken care of. And then I sort of made it much slimmer, and then I used redirection over here using observers and such, so that it was much more compact now. And it was right here you can actually see it. Oh, it doesn't work. What? Okay, that version over there, I'm not sure. It's pretty much one of the development versions. This one over here works. And I actually put, I don't know, a piston here and here in a couple of spots to be able to cancel the momentum in the other axes, because this direction is being taken care of by the pushing of the TNT forth and back. And then there is a couple of pistons in these locations that actually cancels the momentum completely for the TNT. So you can actually see that the TNT actually falls straight through here, and this is the slimmest version I could actually get. This is 11 duped TNT, quite slim, quite compact, kind of useful. I'll actually use, I'll take all these TNT dupers and I'll just put them into one world that actually you can download and check them out a lot. It will be actually in the description, but more for that later. This was the 11 duper, and then looked into actually making it slightly more compact. And I think there is a version over here. This one over here is a little bit more compactor than the one that was shown by Ita. And this is the same thing as the 22, but much more compact. And it places the TNT right here, and it could actually be aligned in the other axes. Then I went like, why would I want to just do a 22 duper when there could be much more? And this was the 66 duper. I actually took that design and I made the 66 duper over here. Now I'm just triggering one side. I'm not triggering both sides. But the gist was that I actually wanted to get the TNT to all align and then land here all at once, as many TNT as possible. But the problem was that this TNT could have like a micro momentum, and as usual, there's always these micro momentums that cause so much havoc with the TNT. It could actually land somewhere over here. Sometimes it actually could land a couple other places, and it blew up. And there was no way to figure out how to fix that micro momentum. I had another idea that actually could maybe squeeze the TNT, and that's what the 66 duper version kind of came to. And this is by now this is the most compact way to get TNT reliably in a compact way to do TNT, and it uses some trickery here where the slime actually meets the glass but it doesn't actually attach. And this is by now the most compact TNT duper I could actually build, and it does 66 TNT 6 rows. Now what happens here, it kind of goes quickly. These glass actually squeeze the TNT when the TNT is actually right here in the middle, like somewhere in between the top and the bottom of the row of the glass. That's where the TNT is located, and these two glass shift over, and the TNT sits somewhere in between. Like, it's difficult to let me just visualize it here. Now this TNT over here is squeezed against two blocks and loses its momentum in the other direction. So at the top, it squeezes, the TNT loses its momentum from the other TNT being pushed forth and back. And over here, just a block later, it's being momentum cancelled in the other direction. And this was kind of important because now TNT was completely reliable after just a few game ticks, which is you only have 80 game ticks to play with. And be able to momentum cancel the TNT this early, this high up, and then use the TNT to align it down bottom was kind of important. This was kind of revolutionary. It was like really important. So I took that design and I played around with it to get the TNT to actually align and fall out of this one spot over here, this one gap. And by now there was like 66 TNT in this one spot, and I can just activate it one more time. We can see it, and this is first up. We actually I got 66 TNT compressed in this one spot by just using this setup over here. And then I thought, why not mirror it? And then the 2 times 66 or the 132 version over here. This is the 132 version came to, and this uses two duped TNT. One set is to place the TNT in this lava block like we saw before, and it puts the second set one block offset, and then it shoots the TNT into this basket over here. And this is 266 times 2, does like twice as much. It takes, however, much longer for the TNT to actually land in this spot. It takes like something like 40 game ticks, but because there is now so many TNT that accelerates it, you could pretty much stack this design over here kind of far out, almost to render distance, and get the TNT to actually get inside of the basket within just maybe 1 or 2 game ticks. And you could pretty much go nuts with this. You could either put this in one row, or you could actually put them in a circle. Now this is the most compact TNT duper in a circle. And you could take these setups and you could just extend them until your render distance kind of finishes. Like in theory, you could reach somewhere ballparks of 6,000 TNT and then crash your server instantly, because your server will never be able to handle that much TNT at once. So you could actually dupe as much TNT that causes a server crash. I would never recommend to do that much TNT. So this is about 528 TNT, and it all compresses from all angles, and then makes it all land in this one spot. There is still some flaws with this design. There is some timing issues with some of them, but I'll try to fix the timing issues, and then I could actually upload all of these compressors. But the most compact compressor, at least to date, is this version over here, the 66 compressor, and it compresses it compresses reliably, so there is never going to be explosions if it's built correctly. And it actually have less safety feature where the TNT is never actually primed, which was a problem in the old version where it always was primed. If you actually touched one of these TNT, it actually blew up. But by now it's not like that, so you can actually build this device without it exploding in your face. So this is the 60, like 2 times the 66, and the 528 could all be used for different applications. I don't know, anywhere there is a need for TNT dupers, for power cannons and such, this stuff can be used. And I am going to try to make this world download and upload all of this stuff, and then along with this video, so you can actually download it at in the video description, along with all the other dupers that was like invented up to this point. And you can just decide whichever one to use. And if you don't want to use TNT dupers, I mean, there is always all the other alternatives. I'll try to actually show the version that is using dispense TNT that is compressing the TNT as well, if I can find it in this world. Now here is the duper that is a non-duper version. If you're now stubborn to actually never want to use dupe TNT and want to use dispense TNT, I actually looked into making a compressor down here below with dispensers that actually can be filled with the hoppers, and stacked them to the height where the TNT actually causes now issues, and used 5 towers of these TNTs and compressed about 1,840 TNT using just dispensed TNT that can be refilled with hoppers. And I'll improve that version. Actually is not in this world, sadly, in this creative, but I will leave that up to you if you want to actually look at check that one out. It's going to be in the description in the world, and it uses something similar to this, where the dispensers dispense the TNT and the TNT actually falls straight down, and then this compressor compresses them, and the TNT is actually being juggled, like the one that we saw over there, the 40 duped TNT. It takes 5 different TNT in 5 different locations and compresses it into this one block. It can be used for any application. I mean, 1,800 TNT is like more than one shulker box of TNT that you waste with the dispenser version. And if you're crazy about not wanting to use duped TNT and want to use that many TNT anyways, you can use that version at least. And there is other alternatives other people have developed. You could probably go for one of those, but this one is at least the most compact that I'm aware of. I'll try to apply all this stuff into a world download so you can check it out. Okay, so this is the device. I thought might as well record it. It's a pretty big one, and it's got a bunch of hoppers on this line here, and they're all full of TNT. At the top here, there is the hoppers haven't been connected to any unloading system. You could either place like I don't know, a shulker box unloader here on top of these connections of these hoppers, and then all of the slime here is just to activate everything in the correct game tick. This thing is actually 1600. It's not 1840. You could improve it slightly and add a little bit more TNT on top, because the TNT can actually fall a little bit further before it ignites and blows up. So this is not the full 1800, but it's 1600. But I thought this is probably good enough, because as it is, this thing lags so hard that it can crash your server. It was crashing my single player. Let's just activate it and see what happens. All of the TNT falls, and then it's going to be pushed into this middle part. Yeah, all of the TNT blows up in this particular location here. It's quite laggy. It's very, very, very laggy. And you could actually remove like many layers. Like each layer is copied, so this and this layer, they're actually identical. So you could actually take a structure out of the top section and just delete as many layers as needed, like layers of 3. So 3 layers can be deleted, and then all the way down to the I don't know, the last layer. At this point, probably doesn't make sense to do it by layers. Could probably also remove an entire section here, because this thing is also in 5 parts. So the centerpiece, and then there is the 4 outer pieces. You could also remove those. I mean, it's modular, but the maximum is at least 1840, and it's the dispenser version. It's pretty useful if you want to use like hoppers to refill your system, and it eats up a lot of TNT. Just shooting it off once eats up 2.5 stacks of TNT per dispenser row here. So I mean, it's up to you if you want to use something like this for non-duped TNT, but at least there is an option for it. I actually used this for the end cannon. I haven't published that video yet, but I guess something to look forward to. There's going to be a world down at the bottom where all the dispensers and the dupers and whatnot, and you could actually use them for any random projects. I can think of at least 2-3 projects off the top of my head: pearl cannons, perimeter machines that you can actually blow up many blocks at the same time, printers that was developed a couple of months ago by Methodzz. There is other tech that could be used with TNT-tubers, I don't know, for random reasons. And currently this stuff, all of this stuff that I've been showing, is all in 1.12. There is different versions for 1.13 plus, and they're still around in the game in 1.14 even. And we are getting confirmation from one developer that his name is Rock and Roll. He's saying that he's not going to remove the dupers until there is a means to replace them. But in my opinion, this is the most coolest tech in Minecraft. It's irreplaceable, and the tech that was actually developed all over this world. It was months and months of wasted time and effort. And this is not just us looking into this TNT duplication. This is many other servers that have actually done this. Obviously, there's a couple of servers that have banned TNT dupers, but in my opinion, it's the most coolest feature of Minecraft, that you can actually use this simple exploit and do the most coolest things with TNT, and it's far more complicated. I mean, you saw the the one that is like duping 512 TNT, and the dispensed version is like 5 times as more compressed. This little block over here is able to take care of the same thing that this massive complicated contraption with pistons and whatnot all over the place, and this complication up top where you have to push the TNT in different orientation, and it just takes this one little redstone dot. If you forget it, and the whole thing blows up. So it's up to you if you decide it's a lame trick that is supposed to be removed out of the game. It's all based on preference. In my opinion, it's one of the things that we should keep around, at least for the sake of having it. And for anyone else that doesn't want to use it, I mean, there's already servers that don't use it. But that's up to you. Anyways, enjoy blowing stuff up with the TNT. Bye.